Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the very first meeting of Risk and Insurance for 2026. It'll be my first day back at school today, isn't it? I'll start with our karakia. Please feel free to join in. Whakatakati hau ki te uru, whakatakati hau ki te tonga. Kia mā kina kina ki uta, kia mā tara tara ki tai. E he aki ana te atakura, he tio, he hoka, he huho, te he moriora. There are no apologies, everybody's here. Are there any declarations of interest from anybody? Any items? There are not. Any urgent business? There is none, and there are no people in the public forum. So that takes us straight to the first item, which is the adoption of the minutes from our meeting on the 20th of November. And we'll do a page turn, starting page 10 and 11. Just raise any issues as we're going through. Page 12, 13, 14 and 15, 16 and 17, 18, 19, 2021. Very comprehensive set of minutes, and that was largely designed for new councillors, just to give a lot more background information, probably than we normally would. So with that, do we have a mover? Councillor Smith, seconded Councillor Kennedy. All in favour? Carried. Page 22, my report, and as I say, they're focused on basically two things that we need to talk about in depth today. First one is the terms of reference, and secondly, the work programme, and the work programme comes as an item further into the agenda. And then I just want to share some thoughts of my own with you in respect to what I think are relevant questions around proposed legislation, which you're going to be talking about at a workshop on the 12th and again on the 26th. So, and with respect to the terms of reference, as we know, it's a requirement for councils to adopt terms of reference. We had a preliminary discussion at our meeting on the 20th of November. You had a wee homework exercise, which I gave you, and thank you very much to those councillors who shared their thoughts, and we've incorporated those into some of the comments at the moment. One of the first ones was in respect to report content and the effective use of the report summary. So the directive has gone out through the management team to staff, when you're presenting your reports, no longer turn up and say, take it as read, but go through, give us the main points, give us the key things that you want to come out of there that will hopefully aid understanding. Strong support for continued program, capital program monitoring, should I say. Treasury and rating impact, making sure as at the outset of discussions on projects, we're well aware of what the bump in the road's going to be, rating-wise and treasury-wise, as we go further down the track. So in terms of the terms of reference itself, attached to the agenda, we just remind ourselves the purpose is to oversee risk management, internal control, external accountability, audit, and legislative compliance. That's why we're here, to do those things. We have no executive powers. We conduct ourselves using the same values and ethics as council does, and indeed all committees of council. We're allowed to obtain information we need from any employee. Therefore, through the chair, it's quite appropriate that we request staff attendance, and it's note behind us a number of staff sitting in here today who will be partaking in discussions. The quorum is a minimum of 5 members, which I don't think will be an issue given that there's all 9 or 10 of us here at the moment. The areas of responsibility, we just remind ourselves, and the reason I'm going through this is we have a recommendation, number 2 on page 22, that we advise council of any suggested changes to the terms of reference, or alternatively that we continue to adopt the same terms of reference, we just roll it over. We ensure that under risk management, we have in place current and comprehensive risk management framework. And I think that's one thing that this council does very, very well in terms of the depth of that, but more importantly, the regular reviews that come back on identified risks, whether we have a sound and effective approach in developing strategic risk management plans. And we remind ourselves we are risk and assurance. So risk is the key thing that we're looking at, the risk of council in terms of continuity, ability to do our business, and the level of service that we provide. Our risk management framework, annually review our business planning continuity arrangements, and that's becoming more of a live thing, really, isn't it? Given the frequency of some of the weather bombs that we've got coming through, and review the internal controls in relation to preventing fraud, and somewhat ironically, that item is on the agenda today. With respect to internal control, we've got to review whether management's approach to maintaining an effective internal control is sound and effective, whether there are relevant policies and procedures in place, whether management has taken steps to embed a culture committed to ethical and lawful behaviour. We review financial statements and provide advice to council. We act as a forum for communication between the CE, senior management and external auditors, and we also have the opportunity for one-on-ones with our external auditors, and we do that 2 times a year. We provide input and feedback on financial statements. We review all audit reports and provide advice to council where that's appropriate, and we comply with legislation standards and, most importantly, good practice guidelines. We are aware of risk, particularly council's appetite for risk. We look at risk and opportunities monitoring, capital program monitoring, legal compliance, and finally, health and safety and culture. So you have had the opportunity to have a read through the terms of reference and formed your own views. Are there any questions, suggestions, additions, deletions that anybody has to share, other than those that we have already incorporated? And as I say again, thank you very much for your response. The other option then is that we move to take this recommendation as a standalone, and that we advise council that we wish them to roll over the terms of reference in its current form. If that was the case, Councillor Catherwood, would you move that?
Move that.
Second is Councillor Cotton. Any further discussion? There is none. Thank you very much. That is passed. The second thing is the work programme, and that is an item on the agenda today. And you'll see we've incorporated the establishment of Southern Water and regular reports on how that's developing. One of the key things that we need to be aware of is, particularly in the next 12 months, the 26-27 financial year, as key staff are looking to establish the CCO, there's also the current business ad hoc. So we just need to be a wee bit aware of the workload of some of those key staff through that 26-27 financial year. Stranded overheads will become an issue, and we will receive advice on that in regular format. Continued receipt of Category A project reports, and we will at our next meeting be looking at those Category A reports. Regular updates on central government legislative procedures, and there are quite a few of them coming towards us at the moment. We'll be talking about those again shortly. And any other matters. Are there any other matters that councillors are interested in adding to that work programme? Just hold those thoughts until we get to the next item or the later item on the agenda. The third thing on my report is proposed government legislation, and as I note, prior to Christmas there was 2 very significant pieces which caused us to reflect over the festive holiday period in terms of what we might be doing or what we might. I just note in there that whilst media and political focus have been on cost or cost savings, for me it's all about service delivery expectations, particularly in the rural and provincial sector, where we don't have the access to a lot of the government agencies that we provide. And therefore we, by default, do a lot of those activities that the community comes to expect from lead agencies, and we are those lead agencies. As I said earlier, I'm aware of workshops coming up where these have been discussed further. In respect to the rates capping, and these are my thoughts on this particular matter, the government's proposing a targeted range of 2 to 4%. Goes a wee bit quiet on from when. So I just need to remind everybody, this is not this year. This is from mid-2029. So it's a long way away yet. It excludes water charges, fees and charges, and development contributions. But the conversation and the education piece with our community has really got to be on the impact of those proposed changes. So the first thing, what is a core service? These are the questions you're going to be asking. What is the core service? But more importantly, what are the services the community value and how do we protect them? Because remind everybody that we are a not-for-profit organisation. Councils don't make profits. That's not our business. Council's business is to provide services at the best cost, best quality, and charge those accordingly at that cost, not with an add-on, not a retail sector. So if we are going to cut our costs, it stands to reason we are going to cut our service. Or alternatively, we were cross-subsidising. We're going to be increasing the fee for swimming pool, reserve use or something like that. So again, the question, what are the services the community value? How do we protect them? Community facilities is one. What is the risk to the community if the service is reduced or indeed withdrawn? And I raise the question, how will local decision making be impacted? Because we are elected by our community to provide services to them. How is that going to impact? And I've just noted how we're going to project our voice on behalf of our community as well. How do we use those opportunities? Similarly with simplifying local government, there are a number of obvious questions I've posed. Do we agree with the need to simplify local government? Do we think that's a good idea? Do the mayors want the extra responsibility? And from an operational perspective, are we satisfied that there are reasonable resources available to do the work, the air, soil and water quality? I've worked in an environment previously where unitary councils, so when I was working for Tasman, and it was a good model. But the first thing you find out is the experts that look at air, soil and water, there's not actually a lot of them. So how is that going to be provided? And again, how is that going to impact on local decision making? So quite happy to hear any comments from anybody on those particular matters around the table. Is there anything anybody wants to share, or are we comfortable with those?
Yeah,
Councillor Cotton.
I guess the driving thing for our community is keeping costs down, as being touched on. But I think one of the key things is being effective and efficient, and that's probably a driver for us all. And that comes to our spending, our services we provide, everything really. It's really local government. And on the face of it, I think simplifying local government has got merit, but there's a whole lot of fish hooks, as you've mentioned, that really need investigation, because it's no good going into these things and finding out we should have done this or could have done that, or we didn't know that. We need to be thorough in our investigations, I think.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor McAtamaney?
Yes, just following on from Councillor Hoffman. At a previous meeting, I might have said that one of the big problems for some of the regional councils in the country and why they've gotten into the mess that they have is that there's been too many people that live on concrete making decisions for those that live on the land, and the same risk applies with the territorial authority. A lot of people that have no relationship with a lot of the land mass of the Otago, potentially make a lot of decisions that impact on that economy and environment, hinterland. So that's, I'm very wary of it.
Thank you. Any other comments? Mr Mayor?
Well, just following on from Councillor Cotton and McAtamaney's, the conversation there, especially around the concrete versus dirt. I had a good at a Merrill Forum about the impact of it and the importance of it for the Clutha District Council, because we're a heavily reliant district on our primary industries. It's a well-known fact that if our primary industries are doing well, our rural communities do well, and they do not actually understand that in the other centres. So whichever way we go, I think the Clutha District needs to have a strong advocate in there pushing that barrow. Certainly they've got more parking meters than us, but on a hectare rate, we've got way more dirt they've got concrete. So we've got to stay strong on that. Just regarding the rates capping, we're so far out. I know 2029 is so far away, but is it actually physically possible that we can be modelling that far out with their water services taken to the side and what we've got left to work with to actually manage into that band of 2 to 4%? It's a pretty, I know it's a big ask at the moment, and I appreciate we've got so much going on, but is it something we need to be mindful of right now, or do we look at that in a few months' time when some of our internal stuff starts settling down, starts escaping? So,
Mr. Chairman, we have got, just in response,
Yep.
we have got a program of work that's happening now to try and produce a post-CCO budget. It's necessary because we are working with our, with our GFA and other partners on those questions. So the questions need to be answered sooner rather than later. We obviously need an understanding of next year's budget and those sorts of things. But we need to understand our stranded overheads, what's our structure going to look like, and all that. So work you're doing on the budgets for next year and work on the LTP, we are necessarily bringing forward a first cut as part of our the job that we've got now. So we haven't got a time frame for when that's going to be completed, but it's a task added on to everything else that has got a lot more priority, and we do need to produce a cut of it. There are questions about what life will look like under the cap and without the CCO. So, sorry, under the CCO. So we all want to know what that is, so we're better informed about the position. That is
the so a question, Steve, like I said, alongside of BAU, how is it quite? It'd be pretty intense for the staff, wouldn't it, to be doing BAU and this bit of work too? Is it the staff all right with it?
It is intense, and when you add the other issues that we have that have been reported on and are being reported on in terms of our transition to our new ERP, that adds on to BAU too. So we have taken some actions to provide additional resources that have that are happening now and have happened. So our staff cannot do the ERP transition issues, address those, address the budget for the annual plan, address the LTP planning, address the first cut that we need for the what's life like with the CCO and the rates capping, which is pretty important. And then BAU with they just couldn't do it with the people that they had. So there was no doubt we had to feed in additional resources. That's contract resources. That's contractor resources. It's the additional staffing we're doing. So Karen can speak to it, but I wanted to give us some support by saying that when you're asking the question and then the research for what is likely to look like under simplifying local government and our submissions and our other bits and pieces that affect outputs as well, but invariably affect finance. That's the problem, is that we just don't have the people to be able to do all that without putting more people in. And we are working towards that, or we're acting on that. Sharon, you're the one, your team's the one that's in the firing line.
Just first before we move on to Sharon, though, like, so to outsource it like that, are we looking at a significant cost that we weren't expecting? Because it'll be outside our budget scope, no doubt, won't it?
So the 1 July budget includes the increase to the financial team capability. unless you change that, right? But that is in the budget. These changes that we're recurring are only just sort of happening, so we're only talking about a number of months whereby that we have to absorb it, and we've been generally absorbing things within the existing budget. The remuneration budget at the moment isn't looking too bad considering what we're doing as a result. So we are trying to manage that with vacancies and other bits and pieces, right? So the idea being, if you wait for the budget for something to happen, they have to wait 3-4 more months with no relief. So we're finding active ways to be able to manage that within our existing budget. Sharon?
I think you've got it. It's just busy, lots going on, like just keeps coming, I guess, and changing.
Any other questions, comments, observations? Councillor Graham?
Yeah, it's central government. They criticise local government for wasting money and be more efficient, blah, 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 and then they throw all this crap in there. Hey, it's election year, and it creates more spending, and which sends us in a downward spiral. It just amazes me that they put all this, if it's not compliance, it's something else, and then turn around and criticise us for being inefficient or whatever. You know, it just, sometimes you just think, gee, but hey, come whatever, December or November, October this year, we can change that. I think we really need to get local MPs and whatever here in front of us so we can tell them, hey, look, what are you offering us? Because if you're not offering us something that suits us, we won't be supporting it, we won't be voting you, and I'll be telling everybody that I know, don't vote for you. And is your head falling off and they've put it on upside down or something? It just amazes me and makes me angry, and I'm normally not an angry man.
Thank you, Councillor Graham, and we just remind ourselves as we look forward to the work programme for next year that the impact and cost of legislation, resource-wise and financially, is actually included in our work programme. So back to page 22, recommendation that the Risk and Assurance Committee receives Chair's report. I will move that. Councillor Graham will second. All in favour? Carried. Next item is on page number 26, Fraud and Procedure Review. Yeah, you're welcome. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everyone. So, in regards to the fraud paper, as to the fraud paper, so the fraud policy and procedure were last reviewed in September 2022, and that was a substantive review in accordance with the legislative framework and council's risk framework at the time. We reviewed it this year as required and had a discussion with staff that are responsible for managing fraud, and we're pretty confident that nothing has really changed that requires any substantive update. So you'll see in the separate cover attachments, we're not proposing any substantive updates. It's an update to reflect dates, and it's an update to reflect the restructure and the council responsibility, so the group manager. So other than that, happy to take any questions through the chair.
Have there been any recent instances where this policy has had to be enacted?
I believe no.
Thank you. Councillor Kennedy.
Have we ever consulted on this policy?
I believe we consulted it in 2022, but not this year.
Questions from anybody? Fairly straightforward, sound policy and procedure. I guess my question of the committee is, having read the procedure, are you comfortable with the process? If you are the person that needs to report suspected fraudulent activity, are you comfortable with the process, having read through the procedure? You are? If there are no further questions, we go to the recommendations on page 26, of which there are two. Do I have a mover?
So moved.
Councillors Graham and Cotton. Any further questions? If not, all in favour, against, carried. Sensitive expenditure, yeah, you're doing that one?
Yep. Through Chair, so as with the previous one, the sensitive expenditure policy was last reviewed in 2023. And the associated procedures, so one for elected members that covers you and one for staff, was reviewed at the same time. We've reviewed the policy itself. It's still sound and in accordance with the guidance issued by OAG, which has not changed actually since the last time we reviewed it. The change that we are putting to you to potentially consider is regarding the meal rates in the actual procedures themselves. And that's largely due to having a look at the last 3 years of policies that have been adopted by central government agencies and local councils. The medium's a little bit lower than the meal rates that we had previously established in the procedure for both staff and for elected members. And so you will see that in the report in 4.2, you'll see in table, in the associated table, that we've set out what our current kind of meal rates are, what the other councils kind of, the medium of other councils are, and we're basically proposing to amend it so that it's in line with the medium based on our just kind of research on publicly available data. Happy to take any questions through that.
Questions, comments, observations? What committee members need to be aware of is that we have given our external auditors a copy of this proposed policy, and they have confirmed their satisfaction with the content. Always debatable in terms of how much you can spend on. $30 is a pretty hearty breakfast, isn't it?
Cheaper at Macca's.
I disagree with that. My wife and I and my two grandsons had breakfast and it cost me $119. And I assured them they had to lick the plates as well.
You shouldn't go to McDonald's.
Look, it depends on personal preference. It depends on which part of the country you're in. So, I mean, I'm sure we can all go to places where you get change out of your $60, and equally we can go to places where that doesn't even cover the cost of the entree. So it's about common sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, eat anyway. There's no pocket.
You're right.
Other questions or observations? Do we have a mover? Councillor Harrison, seconded by Councillor Frost. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. No, I just skipped over you while you're there.
Yep.
I forgot to ask a question with respect to the fraud policy.
Yep.
In the procedure paper, item 2.2, there's a note will include education and training of elected members. Has anything been done or is anything proposed?
I had to defer that.
You'd be happy to report back next
Yep.
meeting? Okay, that's cool.
Mr. Chairman, like, for example, we do sort of tie that up with OAG or
Yeah.
I think coming and speaking to council. And usually the subject matter is specifically around conflicts of interest and fraud speakers. I think that's historically how we've generally done it as opposed to something more specific than that. But we, as you say, we will look at it.
Thank you very much. And this, with respect to the sensitive expenditure procedure paper, is everybody clear, and this is more probably to the newly elected councillors, are you clear on the process? If you are somewhere as a representative of council, you incur expense, are you aware of the process that you go through to claim that back? You are? Good. Thank you very much. Thanks, Jay.
Thanks, everyone.
Right, annual work plan, Sharon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The work plan is in the agenda, which reports we're bringing to each meeting. There are a couple there that don't have meeting dates in yet because a couple of them are new, and the audit monitoring report, you guys didn't want to see it each time because it didn't change every time. So we're proposing to put that one in for 6 monthly for the June meeting, and then again 6 months later. But we wanted to have a bit of discussion with you on when you wanted to see reports on Southern Water done well in the central government legislation. David, you may have some ideas on that.
I do. So the audit recommendation, yeah, I agree, 6 monthly, albeit I'd suggest October, start again June and November, being the dates for that. Central government legislation, annoying as it might be to staff, I would suggest a monthly update, given the speed that everything's coming at the moment, and given that this is election year, and also there are some fairly key submission processes out there at the moment. So I would suggest monthly. Southern Water done well, I would have thought 2 monthly, every second meeting. I can just ask Steve, you're attending the meetings of the CCO. Would every second meeting be appropriate?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's updates being done regularly as well. So it's a really important subject. No harm in doing that.
Yeah, I mean, it impacts on our balance sheet, on our revenue, our stranded overheads, resourcing, and also the employee workload, particularly as we get into the 26, 27 year.
Would there not be quite a bit of work coming sort of later, early to mid-winter?
Yeah.
With this, that we possibly want to be reporting a bit more regularly than 2 monthly by the time we sort of hit July? Like there's some serious stuff to go through immediately.
I would think 2 monthly is all right, but as long as you have the updates if something crops up, obviously,
But we're going to be coming back to council with the shareholder agreement, and that's sooner than later, aren't we? So
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, but there's a difference in, this is just regular, slot for regular updates, where we have to bring papers to council for decision making or workshops to council. They will occur anyway. And so it's not like all this is going to happen behind the scenes, and the only time you get to hear about it is an update in that sense. So no, you're going to have plenty of opportunity to be involved directly with things. So it's just putting a slot for a.
So every second meeting, in terms of finance and resources, does that work? Yep. Sharon, anything else?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, just is there anything else anybody would like added to that? And just want to note, we didn't do the KPIs this time just due to staff availability and working on other things. And we mark the financials as partially done because we are partway through getting to where we need to be. So we didn't mark it as not started at all. And yeah, just if there's any additions, you could let me know. Great.
Everyone happy?
There's a line there with audit, recommendation monitoring.
That through you, Mr. Chair, that's the one we talked about at the beginning. I wasn't sure when you guys wanted to see that because it was coming each meeting, but it was not changing each meeting. So we're putting those dates in as
June and
November.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The reason for that being June is just before the auditors get here for their interim work, so that we can show we've done everything, and November because that's straight after the audit's finished, signed off, and the audit management report is on the desk. Everyone comfortable? Councillor Smith, are you happy to move? Councillor Harrison seconding, all in favour? Aye. Carried. Item number 6, the first of our 2 risk status reports. Donna, welcome.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Through the chair. So this risk report is a high-level breakdown for you associated with misalignment of strategic capacity for delivery of asset management plans. So there's been, prior the inherent risk was read at critical, and the possible causes associated with that was lack of assets inventory, difficult in tracking, managing and maintaining the assets efficiently, failure to establish and follow proactive maintenance schedules, insufficient budget allocation for routine maintenance and upgrades, restructures causing uncertainty, turnover, as in staff turnover, Three Waters uncertainty in relation to the ongoing of the formation of Southern Water done well. So when I reviewed the existing controls in place, I'll just go back to this page here. So the current controls, the first one is with Three Waters, and I seeked guidance from Linda, the GM of Three Waters, on this situation, and it's being completed following current government cancelled previous reforms and is being reviewed for the 26-27 annual plan. The restructure that has been completed, that's our internal staff restructure, and we've successfully recruited a majority of roles. We're working on building the team and filling the final vacancies. So this reflects resolving possible cause 4 and to help to mitigate possible cause 5, which is staff turnover. The current control 3 project initiated to streamline facilities and waste asset data by capturing and recording within Think Project software. This project was activated since July 2025 and it's progressing, and it's intended to be implemented by 30th of June at this stage. From the relevant project manager, who is an external, we've had no indication that there'd be any delays in the delivery of this project to date. And then current control 4, the decision has been made to put on hold the integration of Three Waters asset data to future proposed systems until Southern Water done well has been formed in a more detailed level for decisions on the kind of systems and processes that they are wanting to do with asset management. It was felt there was no point investing into aligning to the processes that we're considering for our other asset management systems until that knowledge has been defined. In regards to, I'll just go back to the page here. Sorry, I'll go back to my chart. So from considering those inherent risks, looking at the controls we have in place and utilising the matrix, I've considered that currently our residual risk is medium. The main reason for that is because of the unknown with Southern Water done well, in reflection to staff turnover and systems and processes. So from that, are there any questions?
Does anybody have questions of Donna? I think the assessment of risk should give you a lot of reassurance, particularly in terms of a very interesting climate, both legislatively and employee market-wise. Mr. Mayor.
Sorry if it's a dumb question, Donna, but so there's a fair focus on the CCO and the Three Waters here, but what about other projects that are going on? Like you're quite comfortable with everything's trucking along good?
So through you, the Chair, this report is associated with the asset management plans.
Yep.
I'm comfortable, definitely. So with our roading asset management, we've been using historically Think Project, which you may have been known it as RAM. It's now changed its name to Think Project. That's used nationally across the country for roading assets. And we've made the decision, sorry, this keeps slipping, that historically the facilities and waste didn't have asset management captured within any kind of actual system. Thank you, Steve. And so after a lot of scoping and planning and discussions at a steering group level, the decision was made to bring in the facilities and waste under Think Project so that we can capture those assets accurately and have the data rather than the team trying to manually do it within spreadsheets.
Yeah.
So on those grounds, yes, I am comfortable.
And I see under risk causes, I see, like I've just highlighted, lack of assets, inventory, difficulty in tracking, managing and maintaining assets efficiently. It's been brought to my attention, and now it's been brought to Councillor Cotton's attention too, about a number of the assets after the water scheme seem to be lying in farmers' paddocks, piping and valves and all that sort of thing. I dare say they've all got a pretty good price tag attached to them, so that's not a good look when we've got our ratepayers are actually telling us that they're still lying around the mutu there, whereas I would have thought we would have had a control in place, whoever's managing that project, to have it all back to a certain place.
Through you, the Chair. So that is correct. Historically and currently there are some assets across the district which we are aware of. The team have been requested to actually have an inventory and stock control of those assets, and in some instances some of the assets are going to be brought into storage facilities, in other instances they are essentially kept in the location of the projects. That is correct.
Yeah. And of course, they're like all that work's been outsourced, like the contractors that are providing the service to the council. So it just seems to be that it's a bit of a, I should be right, mate, attitude in that area. Whereas I would have thought they'd be taking a bit of ownership too and looking after us.
Through you, the Chair. So I don't think that's quite accurate. So we do work collaboratively together and our contractors are aware. And as an example, one of the group of assets that are currently associated with the Balmoral Tuapeka project, our contractor is actually going to utilise their truck delivering additional items to the project, and the round trip put those assets and bring them back to council on our behalf at no additional cost.
Is it likely to happen sooner than later? Because I'm going back 8 months.
It's happening. It's happening over the next few weeks, is my understanding. It's taken some time to determine where those particular assets, because I believe they're currently 18 metres long. So we were trying to find decisions as to where was the best location to store them.
Councillor Frost, then Councillor Cotton.
Number 4, Donna. Currently it is known that maintenance data is not accurately captured to the level required for best practice asset analysis. Could you explain that, please?
Sorry, whereabouts are we looking?
Page 38, Donna.
38.
Number 4.
Item number 4, Start's decision has been made.
Mm-hmm.
And Councillor Frost is asking about the second part of the commentary in that.
Oh, yes. So through you, the Chair, so currently the system used at this council for Three Waters asset management is unavailable, and we have known that it hasn't been historically capturing to the level of detail that was required. For our councillors that have been here for some time, you may recall that this was discussed in some details in previous council meetings, alluding the councillors to this. Hence, the decision was made to then start the project to determine the best systems and processes for our asset management. And through the scoping of this project, the decision has been made until such time that Southern Water Dunwell have decided their asset management systems that they want to use, that it was not viable to continue adding time and expenditure, adding our assets into Think Project if it was going to be moved. So the Three Waters team have got a more manual process that they're utilising through our Teams system, and also the main maintenance contractor has a system that they've set in place also. So we feel that we've mitigated the risk as much as we can at this point in time.
But in addition, through Mr. Chair, we weren't keen on investing in a replacement system until. Sorry, the investment in the replacement system should actually be what the new CCO is going to be using, and we were looking at whether or not we could be aligning ourselves to the CCO work so that we might actually be transitioning to the CCO system in advance or as soon as possible. So there's a whole range of different work streams we're working on, but this is an example where we might be saying we actually want to be transitioning on day one or earlier at the CCO, whereas other councils might be looking at, that might be an area where we might be transitioning over 2 or 3 years and holding our asset management system. This is a difference between the councils. Our priority might be, well, actually, no, we want to move to the CCO system as soon as we can. And we want to be pushing for that. So it is about trying to be efficient. Why spend on something that might be replaced? But equally an opportunity maybe. The CCO is going to get down a pathway. Why can't they do it with us? So we are into that sort of stuff, and this is one of those examples.
Thank you, Councillor Cotton.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Don, just further to His Worship's comments, with the inventory that's been lying around, it worries me that some of it might not be there. There's been comments of people saying, oh, it's been lying around really well, we're going to take it away. So this is something I, as the chair of the Balmoral scheme, did discuss with project managers, as His Worship says, 8 months ago or earlier. What's happening? Why is this still lying around? Where's it got to be? And it's nice to know that it's finally going to happen, but it has been something that's been a concern of mine for some time.
Noted.
Donna, if you could pass on that concern to our contractors as well.
Yes.
And see if we can find an appropriate time frame for that.
Absolutely.
To be picked up. Any other comments, questions of Donna? If not, recommendation is on page 36. Do I have a mover? Councillor McCrosty, seconded. Councillor Graham, all in favour?
Aye.
Against, carried. Thanks, Donna. Olivia, welcome. Page 42, item number 7.
Cool. So morning there. This is my first risk assurance committee, so just bear with me. But I trust you have read the report, so I'll take it as read. And
Can you just highlight the key points to the report?
Sure.
Olivia, if you would, please.
Sure. So overall, it shows that our risk level has stayed the same at high. It does discuss about how we actually have made a lot of progress in the last couple of years, and Christina Johnson and myself have been a key part of that. We've now got a service level agreement with Okaha, and we're currently close to getting one with Te Marama. So those are the two agencies that we work with, and we're also focusing on having more relationship with Runaka. So you'll see in there that there's been a lot of progress made to a point where we've now got the Totukunga working group, and that working group will actually look to formally or have a more structured way of rolling out key initiatives, and that focuses on, there's 3 aspects of that. So there's the cultural, we're now calling it a cultural commitment element, as well as the governance and also the technicals. That's looking at our resource consent. So we're much more proactive in this space than we probably have been historically. And we've now got the buy-in of Okaha and Te Marama to see that we do want a genuine relationship, and we just want to take that to the next level. Thank you.
And there's a hui arranged for next 10th. When's that? One day next week, isn't it?
Yes, that's correct. So Mayor Martin and a few other staff are going up there to meet with Runaka and Otako.
And specific agenda items for discussion?
We do have an agenda. There's some around looking at how our relationship's going to go moving forward in the future. Maybe a little bit on the CCO, showing or demonstrating what we've been doing in the space to show a genuine willingness to have a relationship. Yeah. But also, of course, it'll be what they want to discuss, because we're really open to their thoughts on all of this as well, of course.
Okay, questions?
Yeah, I have a question for you.
Councillor Harrison?
So you got here further work is to be completed with Okaha and et cetera to solidify the partnerships. When do you think that will be in place?
Good question. So with Okaha, we've currently got that service level agreement, but it's more about what the work group will focus on. I guess if you want a short answer rather than me just talking around, 1st of July is going to be a key date for us for when we think we'll be have everything set up and ready to go. And in terms of actually solidifying the relationship, that's really challenging because it'll be live. We'll constantly be working on it. So I think we're most of the way there. But if we say maybe 1st of July, I'd come back to you guys. I know that's quite a few months away, but with these relationships, there's a bit of mahi and time that's spent doing them. And so I can report back then if you like to say, hey, this is the current status, if that's acceptable.
Yeah, it'd be really good to be able to, through council, show the district that we're committed to embracing our culture.
Absolutely, and that's something that the working group can absolutely also look at about not just thinking internally to staff, but for the councillors and also for the community too. Absolutely, that's a really good point, thank you.
Do council ever meet on the Marae?
There's no Marae in this.
Thank you. Other questions or observations? Mayor Martin?
Thank you, Olivia. I'm just going back to the background report there, and we've got 7 failures over a 2-year period. How long is it actually going to take to actually bring things back in line there?
So my understanding, and Steve, you can correct me on this, the 7 failures are things that we could potentially fail at. It's not necessarily failings that we've actually had. Am I correct to my understanding there, Steve?
Yes, through the students, it's how you write the risks. It says it's the risk of failure to deliver the program of capital works. So that's what those describe as, and that's how you have to describe it. You say failure to deliver a program of capital works. That's a risk. So then, what are your mitigation measures and things?
Yeah,
it doesn't say that we failed 7 times. Yeah. There's the risk of failure.
Yeah, we've got 7 opportunities of risk of failing.
Correct.
Is what we've got here. So, what is our risk? If we actually we're in the risk register, where are we at here with there's opportunities to fail? Are we moderate, medium, high?
Yeah, that's why it's listed as high, because that's what the matrix works.
Yeah,
your worship. That's why there's controls, there's mitigations. That's the whole principle of the risk management.
Yeah. So you're quite comfortable with that?
I'm comfortable that we're taking the steps to bring it down from high to medium, because we've been in high for a while, and I acknowledge that, but that's because we've really got to make sure that we set ourselves and our staff up for success. And that means that we're minimising the failure potential in that way. And that's what the working group we're looking at more closely as to how to holistically ensure that we are succeeding in this space. Whereas at the moment, if we've been honest, we've definitely had some wins in some areas, but there's others we need to improve on. And so it's not until holistically and overall that we've improved and we've got sustained evidence that we're dealing well in that space that I'd be recommending that it drop down to medium.
Right, yeah, because I'll just highlight again, it's been a 2-year period and we've been sitting high.
Yeah, well aware of that.
It concerns me that when we see failure, everyone goes, ooh. But so that can we be rest assured there is good positive work being done in these areas?
Yes, you certainly can.
Because I'd say, like, at a high level overview, provided this on page 44, the working group is developing a blueprint. Is the working group getting support?
Yes, we are getting support. I'm probably being a bit cheeky here, but one of the recommendations is looking at, well, not the recommendations, but perhaps further support would be the financial side of things, because with our, we've got some really dedicated and passionate people and staff at council wanting to progress this mahi with this work. And it might be at times that we're actually going to need to get people in to help us because we're not necessarily an expert in the Te Ao Māori view. Mm-hmm. So I guess it's highlighting that, as well as the financial side for our relationships and our supports with the Rūnaka agencies and Rūnaka. So it's raising it, I guess. So through staff and through Steve, yes, we're certainly being supported. And through yourself also. However, the financial side of things may be key at some point.
Right. Because then, when I go down to 3 on page 44, risk courses and mobile capacity limited understanding by staff of the treaty and so forth. For 3 years, I've been watching the reports come through council around projects and so forth. Do our general managers actually engage with local iwi when they are doing some of these projects and ask for any advice or concerns? Are they interested in what's going on? Or I've never seen any engagement with local iwi.
So at times we do, particularly more for the resource consents, but I will, in terms of local iwi, in terms of Ruth and her takiwā, her area, Ruth has given us feedback previously that actually a lot of those things I'd like to go, like Okaha or Te Marama, to manage those things because that's what they're set up for. So often, even for the civil defence event, for example, we would ensure that we contacted the local rūnaka to check in with them. But for our actual operation side of things, in general, I'm not saying that there's not exceptions, but in general, we tend to work with Okaha and Te Marama. That's not to say that won't change in the future, but as we develop these relationships, then we'll learn a lot more. But that's been the path that we've been given guidance on how to go at this stage.
Because I just note, like I say, in 3 years, I've never seen any reference back to liaising with iwi.
Perhaps at a project level, if it's not required, because remember the statutory requirements at times for liaising with iwi, and a lot of that and our focus has been on the technical side or when it's required by a resource consent. So a lot of the time for resource consents, that you wouldn't see that level of detail come through. I wouldn't expect in a council report, but Steve may be able to comment more on that if he's got any more thoughts on the matter.
Yes, so through Mr. Chairman, absolutely, there's engagement in relation to projects. There has had to be an improvement in engagement because we identified ourselves that we had some issues with our processes that created problems around that engagement, but we've picked up on that. That has had significant improvement. We have processes in place now that require engagement on projects. And we also, we provide information for an annual program. In fact, we've been commended on the fact that we are one of the few councils that provides the level of detail we're providing for engagement and for engagement opportunities. So we've absolutely improved in that respect. I think the bit that we haven't, we still need a lot more progress on, but we're making some progress, is that governance level engagement, which is your level of engagement as well, at rūnaka level, for example. So we could say categorically that from the entity level at Te Marama and Okaha, we have set in place engagement protocols and provisions and are really moving well in that space and are doing it. And we have identified that we now need to move into engagement space with rūnaka, and the 10th of February is the very first opportunity to do that. But at a staff level, we've also begun that engagement process as well. But rūnaka engagement is not a staff engagement, it's a governance engagement. So that's the bit that we need to be moving on now. And we've identified it, and we'll work with you on progressing
that. So I'll go back and just say again, though, it would be good to see through some of the reporting that we are doing what we say we're doing and liaising with them.
Through the chair on that drop, well, absolutely. Sorry, me and Martin, we can absolutely do that. And I acknowledge that it hasn't always been that clear in our reporting over the years. So you're not incorrect there. And that's absolutely an improvement we could make to do. Noting as well with this working group, we're still not perfect in the space. And we're definitely wanting to introduce those sorts of improvements. I completely agree with you there.
I appreciate that. We say we're doing, let's demonstrate showing that we're doing to our ratepayers. Under the current controls with their relationship form with local tangata whenua, we've got a good thing going on with Ruth on a local basis here. So where are we at with the agreement, service agreement? That's current, is it? We've signed agreement with them in Hokanui, is that right?
So in terms of agreement, so one with Okaha that we do need to renew, but it's been rolling on, but we do have a signed agreement. And then with Te Marama, they represent. It can be a bit confusing because both Okaha and Te Marama represent Hokanui in some ways. But for Te Marama, I've had a hui with Dean Whanga and his staff in January just to figure out the wording of the contract and that sort of thing. So that is, I'd say it's imminent as long as we can, everyone's happy with it, which I think that we will be. Yeah, so we traditionally haven't had any formal agreements at the Runaka level. Whether we need it or not, that's something we can perhaps discuss when you and I meet with them on the Rai at Otago next week.
The Kaha one, why haven't we re-signed that?
Good question. It's just been rolling on. We're still meeting the requirements that we have to with them, but it's something I'll follow up with Jock for sure.
That'd be great, because I don't want to be called all early and no doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's something I will look into and get back to you on.
Cool, thank you.
Councillor Kennedy and then Councillor
Through you, Chair. Olivia, is it possible that you do a map of our Clutha district and then put in the 3 groups? So then councillors can actually you can visage which area that we're having to deal with, because we sit across boundaries. It's sort of hard for people to sort of visualise, well, why are you going there and why are you going there and why are we doing here? Because, and I don't think some of our councillors probably have no idea of how much is actually involved, and whether you like it or not, it's part of the processes.
Through the chair, absolutely, we can do that. I'll add a caveat, because I love caveats, that it'll be the boundaries are not always like fixed or linear, and with the takiwa for the different Runaka, it can mean they can be quite fluid, so it's not like a hard line, but we can give you a general overview. So I'll put caveats all over it so that we're okay in that space. So that's a really good idea, and I think you mentioned that too. So thank you.
You can tell that we've already discussed that for next week's.
Yes.
Yeah, but we just said it's really good information pack to give you councillors more understanding when we come to the CCO, the Southern Water's done well, because you're not unaware, you should be unaware that you've got Runanga in some districts, and other districts they call it Runaka. And with the CCO, the Southern Waters, there's quite a few of them. So I'll give you a better picture with that conversation comes in later on.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just I'll add to the caveat. It's not the place of council to draw a line on a map for takiwa and interests. I can tell you that we will be criticised, probably quite rightly, if we drew a line on a map. And so we have to be careful that we can't actually do that. Like, unless Runaka do that, and there aren't many and give us the interests. And I remember coming from the North Island, we had the same issue. But we used to work on the basis that an iwi would give us their interests, which would have overlapping interests. And it's only what they can give us in terms of their interest side. And we would be in trouble if we decided, and even if we're trying to do it nicely and say, here you go, just for your purposes, we're still going to be in trouble if we try to draw a line on the map showing an interest in that. So it's going to have to probably be a little bit more vague than that and amorphous from that side of things. And it's from different perspectives as well. From a planning perspective, we've got certain information, but a Runaka perspective is a different perspective again. So that is, like this. It's the sort of thing that actually, if you go to Otaka, for example, Runaka, and as part of the conversation, you talk verbally around what is your areas of interest, your takiwa in that. You get that information in that sense. That's really useful information. But you need to also do that. If you go and have that conversation with Hokanui, you'll get a different viewpoint around interests and things like that. And one Runaka can't speak for another, for example, and things like that. And we know Te Marama and Otaka can't speak for the Runaka. So it does present a complex picture. And so within that complex picture, we'll see what we can do. But I just do know it's important that we can't put lines on that.
Councillor Cotton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Mayor and the the Deputy Mayor probably answered my question. I was wondering about it in terms of reference, because I know I have conversations with His Worship and he's telling me what it is, and I don't know.
Sure.
So I'm not being ignorant. I want to know, need to know. So it might be helpful, as they've said, for all of us. So you've got, it looks like you've got your finger on there.
Yep.
So I'm looking forward to seeing that. Thank you.
Yeah, through the chair, we could put together a package as well over the next few months so that you guys, even if we, as Steve said, can't be super accurate for really good reasons, you've still got a bit more of a gist, because I understand it can be a lot to understand. So it's a great idea.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? If not, do we have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Kennedy moves, Councillor Harrison is seconded. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thanks, Olivia. Right, Donna and team. We're on page 50, looking at category A reports. And we'll work through the A to D ones first. Donna.
Morning, everybody again. So the project management team will be discussing and talking through each of their projects individually. I'm not sure whether or not you're wanting to inquire about the items project E and the other items addressed in the summary report with Sharon and team first, or would you rather we just step straight into the major projects?
Sorry. Yeah.
Sorry. On the summary report here, pages 50.
No, A to D first.
A to D first,
Yeah.
sorry, apologies. Alrighty, so in that instance, I'll ask John to come up and talk through the Balmoral Tuapeka project first.
Thanks, Donna. Welcome, John. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Mr. Chairman, New Year councillors.
John, if you can just introduce the report and give some background to the key points in it, and then I'm sure councillors will have some questions.
Balmoral Tuapeka Water Scheme project. This project was implemented into with the two contracts, contract 850 and 865. This project was to supply water in the Greenfield area, as well as the Tuapeka area, Balmoral, as well as extending it to Lawrence. So contract 850 was the pipeline contract. Contract 865 was the water treatment plant, bore fields, and pump stations. Up to this stage, contract 865, we have completed the scope of works and we've issued the PCC for that contract. So we're currently going through the maintenance period, 12 months maintenance period. And contract 850, we still have some outstanding work that needs to be completed. It's currently within the defects liability period and it's been extended. So final completion certificate has been extended, still outstanding. So we have the fiber installation that still needs to be sorted. We also have, as part of the overall project scheme, we still yet to extend the water to Balmoral 2. We had the extension trialed, but unfortunately we couldn't get the flows and pressures. So my apologies, Mr. McDamney, for the statement that I made last time. It was incorrect. So I went over my head and stated that we did extend it, but we trialed it. And that's how we came about finding the pressure loss through the system. This, as you're aware, that this is the existing system, existing pipe work that was installed 10 years ago. And when we tried supplying the greenfield supply, it actually, we found out that there was a pressure loss in the system. So we're trying to sort that out and identify the problems within the existing pipeline. Okay, I think, yeah, if you...
Thanks, John. Councillor Nakatami.
Yep, through the chair. Yeah, John, the Balmoral 2 site, it's a bit disappointing. I'm not having a crack at you, but on the whole thing, to my neighbours on the other side of the Waitahuna River, we've got very good water. we're paying out $800 a unit. There's everybody on that other side, Balmoral too, paying that $800, and they're still getting the dirty old Waitahuna. Right, so yes, we know you're looking at those options of trying to clean the pipe, but from my understanding, if we go way, way back, you've got not enough pressure going up that hill. Going way back several years before the project, at the very beginning, there was initially plans for a water pump down at the old Waitahuna treatment plant to push the water back up to Balmoral too. At some point, that was removed from the plans, and it seems pretty. Well, you may be able to do it, but it seems pretty clear to me that that's probably the reasoning now why you're not getting the pressure, and we may well be forced to spend more money for a pump down there.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, if I could just explain some of that history.
Thanks, Charles.
My understanding was that absolutely initially the pump station was required, but that was when we were designing the system for a significant increase in volume. And when that was reviewed based on the information they had, that shouldn't have been required for the current flow. So that's when that was removed. We actually do have a backup plan, which is to use it's obviously not ideal, but we can actually use the Waitahuna treatment plant and pump back up this other side of the hill. So if the flow testing doesn't work, we should be in a relatively short time frame to move back into having a pump station there, not a brand new pump station, and we do need to look at what pumps and things we will require. But that is the backup to get water into the Balmoral 2 scheme, is to basically take it down the hill and then pump it up the other side. That will incur additional energy costs, because the whole point of trying to not break it at the Waitahuna plant and then repump it is going to cause us some additional operating costs. But if we can't get the flows through that pipe as what were observed previously, that's the backup plan to get that water to those customers in the near future.
And the final comment, the water, we are getting the water, and it's very good.
Thank you. Councillor Graham.
Just further to that, it's a comment, and Balmoral 2 is the only one that isn't getting good water, and actually being on the extremities of Balmoral 2, am I to believe that I'll be the last one that gets the quality water first? Will I be the last? It's looking that way, isn't it?
Yes.
Just tell me.
Yes.
No, you'll be
Water
first.
runs down. You'll be the first to get it because you're at the end of the line.
Mayor Martin, Councillor Cotton.
Sleep happy now.
Yeah. So John, hey, thanks for the report, and as Councillor McAtamney alluded, as well for your involvement in the journey. But it does raise a question of who are the people that make these decisions to remove stuff, and now we're faced with this consequence. We've got ratepayers that are paying the equivalent to their neighbours and are not receiving the same product. So it just raises a concern for me, who's in the position that makes these decisions to remove stuff that it's already been spec'd in the contract. So I think there's a learning there that moving forward, if we ever take on another project of this size, there's a fair bit.
There are some learnings.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Chairman, there's a question asked, and Jules reported that a decision was taken to not put the original pump in. It was to do it for a particular reason, explained the reason, but you asked a question as to who made the decision. This is an historical question there, so we should be able to answer that, shouldn't we?
I can't absolutely categorically tell you why, but we were trying to look at saving costs in the project. So it was relying on the technical information to say, based on the information we had, that pump station wasn't required for the current flows. So we can also be criticised if we put things in that aren't required as well. So it would have been the project managers working with our capital delivery team saying, what do we need to deliver the outcomes from this project? And with not allowing for the full future flows, that pump station wasn't considered required based on the design information they had. That's my understanding. But Raymar or the team might have some other information they can update on that as well.
So the project manager is what you're saying then?
With consultation with other staff.
So we'll just hear from staff.
Yeah, through your chair. I think looking forward, because those are the historical ones, we've acknowledged those improvements or feedback from the previous project. So what the project managers are doing right now is once the contract is in place, we have several processes where before a change can happen. One is to have a change request process wherein the heads of the activities would have to sign it off before it goes through another process in terms of the financial impact of the project, which goes through the request for variation order process. So these processes are in place right now to mitigate those potential issues and to be able to answer in the future who made the decision.
Thank you. Councillor Cotton.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just a question, what are we doing to work out the problem with that fine? What's the process?
So we currently, as I've mentioned before, that this is an existing water main within the network that was operational for 10 years. So the only contract that's authorized to access this water main is ISAX. So we're working with ISAX and operations, in working out the scope, because we need to have a clear visibility of the cost that's involved. So once we receive the quotes, we've worked out some options, on what we need to apply on the pipeline just to so ensure that we remove these difficulties.
We've got this further update because we also meet in the operations meetings every week. So we ask those sort of questions there too, so we can update further to assist John.
Yep, so we have got it confirmed. We've accepted the proposed scope. We're putting in 3 launching and exit locations for swabbing along the pipeline. We've had property owner approval for that. I've asked Isaacs to confirm today when they can start the work because it's urgent and we want to get on with that as soon as we can. So that we expect to be able to do that as soon as they can actually mobilise and install those locations. So
within the month?
I'd be hopeful it's well and truly within the month, but if there's any fittings that they struggle to get, but we've pulled the trigger to say, we need to get on with this urgently and confirm whether that pipeline will perform as it used to perform or whether we need to go to a double pumping option.
Okay. Thank you. Also, Mr. Chairman, Wairuna treatment station is not in a good state of repair, and I would suggest that we'd have to build a new one there. And the other comment I've got further on from Councillor McAtammany's comment, I get phone calls and comments about how good the water is, even to the point where consumers are saying they don't mind paying because the water is really, really good. So that's a big win for us. The other question I have, now that Balmoral 1, Tuapeka East and West are separate from Balmoral 2, the boil water notice on that side of the scheme, is it likely to come off in the near future, or does it have to wait till the whole scheme is compliant with the Lawrence add-on, which I hope is happening within the month as well?
Again, we've got an update because we talk about that in operations.
Thank you.
I'm happy to give this update. We had a discussion this morning. So the testing has been done and the plant is looking really good. And we're hoping that we'll have an announcement next week about lifting the boil notice. We've got a couple of things to tidy up, including working with the regulator to make sure they're happy.
Okay.
Thanks, Linda. Any other questions of Joel on this matter? If not, we shall move to the Milton suite of projects, starting with the pipeline renewal report. John, again, just if you could give some background and status update.
So, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This project, we've awarded the contract on the 10th of November. My apologies for not stating the tender award amount there. It's 1.65 million for renewing both the stormwater and the foul sewer main along the north end of Union Street, Milton. So we've completed all the kickoff meeting. We're currently reviewing all the construction management plans from the contractor, the insurances, so that's all the contractual stuff. And before we award the possession of site certificates for them to commence with the physical works. And also the contractors waiting for approval from NZTA, on their temporary traffic management plan. And with this project, we're also working closely with our comms team so that we can make sure that we notify the public with any progress before the work starts and during the works. So the scope of this works will be 60 days. So it's supposed to complete practical completion for around end of April. So that's provided that there's no unforeseen. There's a few risks that have been identified in the report, especially the known risks of the depth that's involved, which is greater than 3 meters. And also any archaeological finds that we come across during the excavation. So we've also alerted the Heritage New Zealand, in terms of any findings that we come across. And there's also some identified laterals, unidentified laterals that we couldn't identify when we did the investigative work during the design phase. And there's a known condition of the grounds, which would be extremely soft in some stages where we might need imported fill to meet the loading compaction requirements on the road carriageway. Yep, and there's also a risk of, when we apply a detour, when we block the State Highway 1 for some urgent works along Park Road intersection and the Springfield intersection, then we might need to allow for vehicles to detour around the local roads within Milton. So there's a risk of damaging the local roads. And yes, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thanks, John. Key thing is we're contract signed and starting on Mondays. Questions from Councillor Graham?
Yeah, John, you're talking about a possible detour. Where would that go?
So
Would it go?
they're proposing to come from Melville Streets and then exiting along Springfield Street. Yeah, that's we're trying to get it minimized to at least less than 3 days. Yeah, the contractor has proposed to have it closed, State Highway 1 closed for 5 days, but then we wouldn't accept that, as far as CDC roading department is concerned. So, yeah.
Excellent, thank you. Councillor Coleman?
To you, Mr. Chairman, John, just a couple of things from me, really. The archaeological part of this, has there been any indication that there might be something there? And what would you
So
expect?
we went ahead, thank you for asking, Mr. Chairman. We went ahead and applied for an archaeological approval from Heritage New Zealand, just before the construction works begin. So they're on the monitoring, mode, just to monitor, as we progress with the works, because it requires 40 days of approval. So to avoid any delays further, when we begin the works, we went ahead and applied for that, on behalf of the contractor. But the area of Milton is prone for archaeological finds, and that we experienced that with previous renewals that we did, in previous years. And we also encountered delays in the works because of not, advising or notifying the archaeological or New Zealand heritage, in that regard.
Excellent. I would like that you've been proactive. And the other point of interest for me is the unrecorded pipes and the asset register. One would have thought the old Milton Borough Council may have had something like that, but I was not surprised. I think you're going to find things like that everywhere in our old towns.
Thank you. John, are you doing the beautification one as well?
Yes.
Now, am I reading that correctly, that it's ended up being well under budget? I'm looking at page 64 where you see a budget of 2.2 and the forecast spend is only 987.
No, it's really, it's not the original, like the original capital budget for the project was sitting at that 2.2 in terms of the beautification whole process. And that was one of the things that we looked at in terms of, well, what options does council want in terms of reduced options and things. And so whilst that was the original budget, the budget we should be working on is whatever it was, the agreed contract budget, which council was discussing scenarios and approving for. So we do want to hold ourselves to whatever the agreed contract budget was, and that. You know, if for example we were needing to come back and say, hey, we need some more money for something, yes, it would come out of the original what we thought it was going to be, but there is a set contract.
Thank you. I'll temper my excitement.
we can't take, we can't claim that.
John.
Yep, so with the streetscape project, so as updated in the report, we've completed the car park behind the toilet facilities. This report as of the 16th of January, but up to the end of last week, we've completed that car park with the line markings. We've also installed the EV charger for electrical vehicles and disability parking. We've also completed the parking on Grey Street area. So there's 2 car parks in that area. So as noted in the report, the whole point there is mainly the feature wall. So there was a geotechnical survey that was needed to be done. That's already been done. And we've asked Stantec to provide the geotechnical memo. And they've provided the geotechnical memo as well as the cost for the detailed structural design for the wall. And it's a bit too expensive in our view, so we are seeking more quotes on that regard. Yeah, just to justify comparison of these quotes. So currently everything's pending on structural wall design. So we had a discussion with the contractor, and they can't really move in to install any of the furniture, because even the lighting within the plaza area also depends on the structural design, the geotechnical survey results. So they need the structural, the lighting designers need the structural geotechnical report for them to design the base of the poles. So until we get that information, we should be able to progress ahead with the works.
Mr. Chairman, just a question for, which might be what you were going to ask anyway, Councillor, whatever, but I didn't get a chance, my apologies, because I was away to check the report. But one of the questions I would have asked for would be, with this on hold aspect, we're looking at the design stuff, and quite rightly challenging and questioning the cost of the design and what we're going to end up with, and come back and see what it means to the project. Are we incurring, daily costs for the contract because they can't progress it? We got provisions in there to protect ourselves, or we got a problem with time and cost because there's the contract that we issued. They can't do anything much. We're waiting for this for 2-3 weeks, whatever it's going to be. Are we going to clock up costs with the contract?
I believe so. Yeah, we will incur, additional costs with this extension of time. But at the moment, the contractor still has some work to do on site, so which occupies their time. But it's critical that we need to get this feature walls stuff sorted, as soon as possible.
Thanks, John. Councillor McCrosty.
This is all very good, John. and I'm not getting at you at all. We've got multiple pedestrian crossings in there, and the first one will be covered in the bulbous curbs under this contract. But we have two further up the road that still haven't had the bulbous curbs done. We're coming into Anzac Day, and the footpath outside the cenotaph still isn't sealed. It's grim. So how are we going with those? That's all part of the street.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for raising that point. So those pedestrian crossings were purposefully removed from the Milton Street Utilities Project, which was done and completed last year, and was supposed to be moved onto this project. But unfortunately, it wasn't scoped in this project, and so we have to add it as a variation to this project, to this contract. So I've asked the contractor to provide a quote, for installing those bulbous curbing for those pedestrian crossings, as well as sealing works that needs to be done. So until I get that information from the contractors,
So was that
provide
not,
that indication.
sorry, was that not scoped originally in the main street upgrade? In the original?
This particular project, it wasn't.
No, I'm not worried about this project. I'm worried about the original.
The original.
Yeah.
I believe it was, because I'm not surely. Yeah, it's an historical project.
So through you, Chair, so are you, sorry, Councillor McCross, are you referring to the underground infrastructure project?
Well, when we did all the footpaths, etc., we pulled those curbs, etc., out. They've been moved, and they've never been redone. Now, wouldn't that have been on that original contract?
So through you, Chair, so originally they were correct, however, because of budget constraints at the time, and if you recall, we actually had to bring forward our full 3 years footpath renewal budgets because NZTA had slashed it by 70% for the entire district to be able to do the footpaths to the level that we had done. So hence the reason now it's going to have to be included into this beautification project, in which case we'll have to seek variations. And that was a council decision.
Will the footpath be done before Anzac Day? Because we're going to have some elderly there, and it's also quite bad outside the RSA.
Through the chair, we can prioritise that if that's the case.
Other questions, Councillor Graham?
Through you, Mr. Chair, on a far more positive note, every time I go past there, I notice there's cars in the new car park, so good stuff. And I was in Hamilton Hardware the other day and did not get any negative.
Sorry,
Any negative reaction. But yeah, still looking good in Milton.
Comment. Thank you for sharing that. Mayor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, John. John, just so the geotechnical survey, so they're quoting $33,800.
Sorry, sir, that was a typing error there. So the geotechnical survey was 23. That was already costed in the offer of services from Stantec. That's already been paid for. But that's the design for the structural design for the feature wall.
So that's just for a structural design.
That's just for a structural design. That's why we pushed back, because it was a bit,
What sort of a time frame are you waiting for the other people you've approached?
So we're expecting a quotes yesterday, but unfortunately, we got a call that will probably provide it sometime today.
Oh, right. Because the project started on 1 December last year, and every time you go through Milton, it's actually quite depressing when you see all the fencing up there and all the gear sitting there and nothing happening. Seems to be once again a case of all hooey and no doing. So I think the people of Milton have just about had it up to their eyeballs. We need to be putting the foot on the throat of this project and getting it over the line. My opinion.
Yes, but Mr. Chairman, I think we also need to remember that the position of this project and the decisions around will we have a wall, will we not have a wall, will we go the full, the whole hog what the original budget was, when you pulled back from a budget. That was all governance discussions and workshops and your decision making around what you wanted. And then once you said, this is the option we want, the next thing was the staff needed to action that, and the staff did, and they had a budget around the 80,000 for the wall based on what was known at the time for the option assessment. What staff have received is then a design thing for a substantial amount, proportionately for what the wall is going to be, and staff said, wait, hang on, we need to look at this because we don't just going to authorise this and go ahead and say it's a variation. We need to actually say, hang on, that we need to test it, right? That's what you'd expect. So I know what you're saying, but the sequencing in this one is part of governance sequencing as well, around identifying the different options and where we are going. And the project team, in terms of actioning this, we have got action. Some stuff's been done because where they've gone and they've tried to do it, despite the fact that design and geotech work needed to be done, to do it as fast as possible, but bringing it back, because, as you would expect us to do, we need to make sure that you're happy with what the costs are going to be what we're going to get. Looking at the report, from a risk and assurance perspective, I would be saying to you, I think we need to be prepared that something's going to be coming back saying that feature wall $80,000 budget's not going to be enough, and you'll then make a decision about encroaching into the original 2.25 million, agreeing to variations for that, or doing something else again. Which is like, let's not have a feature wall, we're back to that sort of question. But you have to make those decisions because we're going to be giving you that.
I appreciate that, Steve, but we'll go back a few steps further. When that governance decision was made and it was scoped out, what the missing part was part of the engineering of that original project that we approved. When they went on site to do it, the contractor told council and the contractor's staff made a verbal statement that wall design was not designed right. And that's hence the situation we're in now, because the foundation was never going to be any good. And that's what's drawing this out. So I'll leave it at that. Your turn, Councillor Cathwood.
Can I just comment on that through your chair? During that council decision, based on my memory, it was based on a high level estimate from the contractor at that time, given the information that we have during that time. And the purpose of that council meeting was to scope up whether we go option 1, 2, or 3. So that's how I recall it.
Councillor Catherwood.
Through you, Chair. So yeah, I mean, that's coming back on governance. So the way I see it, we sat around the table. I remember rightly, I voted against even spending 80,000 or more that you couldn't look for 80,000. It turns out that's actually correct. You can't look for freestanding wall for 80,000. So, like, it wasn't, to me, wasn't going to be possible anyway from the get-go. What I'm saying. So now it's coming back to us again. So now it's actually costing the whole project more. From what I'm understanding, Steve, is to have that contractor sitting, it's costing us more.
Well, I asked the question.
Yeah.
And obviously the contractor's still doing some work, so we're not necessarily in that full position. But the risk is that the longer this draws out, we might be in that position of it costing us.
Yeah. So if anyone's built a recycled brick wall that freestands, you'll understand the size of it. You're not going to get very far for $80,000. So it's costing us more. We need it brought back to us as soon as possible to, I would say, scrap the wall, finish the project, get the plaza open.
Right, last question from Councillor Graham, and then we'll talk about steps going forward.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Further to Mayor Martin saying that the public are getting it grassed off and that. This goes back way before even Councillor Martin was on council, and there's been numerous governance decisions that have changed it and swapped it around. The whole thing has probably had that many blooming different iterations. If the public aren't happy, it comes squarely down to the elected members' decisions. You know, it hasn't been operations that has held this project up and made the people unhappy. It's decisions and repeated decisions by elected members.
Thank you. Donna, let's talk about next steps in terms of this wall.
So, through the chair, I just want to clarify a few points from comments that have been raised here. So, yes, the governance did make the decision to request my team to go and get costings associated with this high-level costings for this brick wall. The $80,000 at the time of the discussion was a very high level, and it was advised to governance that that was the situation. Now, my team are acting financially prudent as far as my concerns are, because we've received a price from a professional service provider, which we could have just said, yes, go ahead to do it. However, for $30,000, it is not financially prudent. It would be a poor decision to go ahead to keep time on track. So we've made the decision to go out and get additional prices. If the other prices prove to be less than what we've currently got, it may well be that possibly this brick wall could fall within this high level estimation. If it does, we can proceed. If it doesn't, as advised by our governance, the team will then come forward for your decision on what you would like to do with that brick wall. In regards to timing, Your Worship, we have to close over the Christmas period. So we've lost 4 weeks in regards to that process as well. And just as another point, in regards to potential additional day rates, that hasn't started yet, because John has actually been very strategic where he's actually getting them to do other bits and pieces of work. If the quote comes in today, we're hoping that we won't be starting to get day rates. And we have a very collaborative relationship with the contractor, who is actually working very closely with our team and work favourably for council, where at times where they can get to a point that they don't charge us day rates, they do. But of course, they are a commercial business and they have every right to do that contractually.
Thanks, Donna. So in summary, there will be another report coming back, either to council or to this committee, is that correct? Yeah. Final comments on the subject? There are none. Let's move to Mount Kui. So just so everybody knows where we are time-wise, we will break after this report. We will only break for 10 minutes because we're not quite halfway through the agenda at this stage. We're looking somewhere around 1:15 finish time today. And we do have another meeting at 1:30. So strictly 10 minutes for morning tea.
Through the chair.
Welcome, thank you.
Thank you. I just want to talk about the project scope of Mount Kui, the design and construction of the transport station, and design and construction of the new landfill. For health and safety, there's no health and safety concern raised this period. And for the refuse transfer station, the project was put on GETS on October 7 and closed on the 14th November 2025. The tender evaluation was completed on the 4th of December. Following the evaluation, we have received information on December 18, suggesting that the proposed temporary transfer station may not be required at this stage, as initial assessment suggests there's sufficient remaining space at Mount Kui. Because of this, we put the decision to appoint contractors on hold.
Thank you.
Through you, Chair. So this is a team effort here. So well done, Dred. So that's providing the high level update as to where we are in regards to the project. And as you're all aware, solid waste operations as of last week, I think it was, has fallen under my portfolio now. And so associated with that, prior to Christmas, I went out to site and had meetings with the maintenance contractor on site. And from talking from an operational perspective, we actually considered that we may not need the temporary transfer station, which has an engineer's estimate of $400,000, that we may have the ability to put a temporary transfer station on top of the current cell. So leading up to Christmas and following Christmas and right up, I think it was till late last week after this report was written, the decision has been made that in actual fact we do not require to build this temporary transfer station. A few factors associated with that. One is that we had a drone survey completed just on Christmas, and we got the results the second week back in the new year, where it's currently estimated there's 14 to 19 months of airspace available in the current cell. And that was associated with from the ground level of upwards of the cell, and also where the waste is being tipped and positioned. We're actually going back to the surveyor because they haven't also considered the entire cell size, which includes some roads and it includes the new kidney extension. And they also hadn't factored in the temporary capping material, which is 400 mils deep, so that much. If we scrape that back, just in one area alone, high level, we've worked out it's approximately another 900 cubic metres of airspace. So favourably, we've got time on our hands, on top of which, looking at the current cell, which does have the leachate drains already in position and in place, and doing a temporary measure where we can actually put temporary concrete blocks or barriers on top of the flat area of the cell. We can do that for, we're estimating at this stage, in a conservative estimate, really, favourably, of up to $100,000. So I'm proposing to the councillors that if you agree that we withdraw the current tender, and during the councillor workshop, and particularly next week, I've got all the details for you associated with that. But we are very confident. We've also reached out to ORC regarding resource consent, and they are comfortable that we can proceed with this proposal, saving council $300,000 if you agree to withdraw the tender today.
Oh, you're not making a decision today, risk and assurance, are we? Withdraw the tender or something.
I was hoping to get direction because we've actually got it on hold.
So, but that's a decision that fairly confident I should be able to make.
Okay. Thank
you.
you.
The point was it's a positive news and about extending things and that side of things, right? So I don't think we need a resolution of council. Risk and assurance.
Thank you.
We don't have the mandate to do that, but
sorry.
Thank you. No, thank you.
Yeah, we can have some sort of.
Just a bit excited there, actually.
Yeah, no, it's very good news time. Very good news. So Stephen and you will work through that.
Oh, yes, and I've been fully aware of it, Mr. Chairman. So it's a positive story in terms of where we're heading, and from further research, it's to our advantage in that sense. So it's necessitated also because we need to be looking at what the budgets are for any plan, so we now can feed in some much better information related to that. So all that's necessary.
Thank you. Any questions of Donna? Fred, Donna, thank you very much. Let's talk briefly about Elsie Stewart Library and Hall Facility.
Right, so this project is progressing quite nicely at this point in time. So just prior to Christmas, we actually had the physical construction contract signed between council and the contractor Calder Stewart. We've also appointed an engineer's representative, Craig Byers, who is an external, who was actually the engineer's representative with the construction of the Mosgiel pools and other pools. So he'll be bringing in a wealth of knowledge from the technical requirements and aspects associated with that. For those of you that have actually driven through Milton, you'll see that all the demolition works has been completed by Andrew Haulage, and it's actually looking a really nice flat site. The Tokomaru Training Centre, they did have a small porticom building that was still on site, but I noticed last week that's now gone as well. I went and spoke to the training centre to inquire when they believed that would be moved. And it's gone within the timeframe they provided, which is fantastic news. We've started the initial kick-off meeting in the new year. We had to wait for Quarter Stewart team to come back from annual leave from the 19th of January. So we've had that meeting in that week's time where we introduced them to the engineers representative as well. We are currently waiting on the building consent to be approved through council before any physical works can commence and start. And I've reached out to Otago Regional Council because as part of our resource consent requirements, because there's 2 resource consents associated there, that we're required to do site validation reporting. But what I've reached out to them to, and site validation reporting from the demolition works within a 3-month period from when that works has completed. So I've actually reached out to the ORC to inquire of what I'll call the above ground demolition, so removing the buildings, that's been completed. The physical earthworks demolition work, which is digging under the ground, is planned to start. It was hopefully going to be starting this week. However, because the building consent still hasn't been approved, that physical work is being delayed. That because of the reason that the next amount of earthworks underground is about to commence, that we can actually do site validation reporting once, which will hopefully save about $3,500, which I know we're talking a $19.4 million project, but every cent counts. So I'm just waiting on that response from the ORC. If they advise that no, we have to do 2 individual site validation reports, that will also cause some delays in the physical commencement of the works. If I go through, only by a couple of days though, if I just bring your attention to the risk and issues register, I'm pretty pleased to say that all the risks associated with the detailed design and getting us to implementation stage have all been mitigated and closed off within the timely manner. And the project Gantt chart, I'm unable to provide an update until such time as we've got the actual commencement of physical construction. However, if it is this month, we're on track for 19-month deliverables at this point in time.
Thanks, Donna.
Can I just add to Donna's report, please, Mr. Chairman? The story about signing the contract. I signed the contract because this is the famous quote that's being reported. I signed it because the fiscal works contract, what was spent, all the total expenditure to date, plus the contract, all was within the budget that was presented and approved by council. Not 1 cent more. That's what the quote and the promise I gave, because that allowed me to sign that contract. So I did it on that basis. I do note, and this is for risk and assurance, that there is public reporting out there suggesting that I am guaranteeing that the contract will not spend 1 cent more than the contract price. Now, I'll just make the point that nobody can guarantee that, and I did not guarantee that. I guaranteed that I would not sign the contract unless it was for not 1 cent more than what the budget was in total. That's what I have done, and that's why I signed it. But as I said, force majeure, whatever, nobody would guarantee any project could be doing something. And I just want to make the point at the start, because different people have different views, and I want to be clear what I did promise and what I did act upon as a result. So just wanting to let you know, we have, we're already making savings. We're putting extreme, scrutiny on the project. Donna's personally involved, where lots of people are looking at controls. As I said, we're already making savings as a result of that side of things. We absolutely putting this through the ringer for expenditure scrutiny, and we will be reporting accurately on all that as the project develops. But I'll just make a point, no one can guarantee what the end result will be, and I didn't want a problem later if people have different viewpoints. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate that clarification. Any questions of Dean? Dean, sorry, Councillor.
Is there any timeline on the next two buildings coming down? The old Reed Farmers building, etc.?
So through you, Chair, they're actually not part of this specific aspect of the project. It's current. There's been purchased by externals, yeah. But we'll be working alongside each other, I'm sure, but that's not part of this project. And just to rectify what the Chief Exec has stated, the contract is a lump sum contract awarded, and I've given written notice to the engineer's representative and to the contractor that in no uncertain terms, no variation at all will be approved by the engineer's representative on site without prior written approval of council. And it will go up through to the steering group as well. I've made that very strong.
I've noted a couple of previous meetings, given the significant investment and time involvement that council has in some large projects at the moment, both current and also planned in our 26-27 annual plan, that it might be prudent to hire a bus and go for a tour around the district just to get eyes on a lot of these projects so that we can better understand, A, the status of them at the moment, and secondly, what's going to be potentially happening in the future. So over the next few weeks, I'll work with the Chief Executive and key staff and try and align a suitable date. I want to go back to page 50.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chairman, we've actually got 2 days scheduled to do exactly that later this month.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, so we've already got those penciled in.
Yeah, and councillors aware of those dates?
Yep, so Thursday the 19th is the first day for the for the northern part of the tour in the eastern area. Yep, and then
So 19th of Feb and 20th of March?
March the 12th. Sorry, yep.
19th of Feb and 12th of March.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you for doing that. The report will go back to page 51. Project E, Datascape. I'm not going to talk about that at this stage. That features in the yellow pages later this morning, so we'll have an extended chat on that at that time. Projects F and G and H, noted there are no changes, and local water done well is recording for public purposes what you are aware of. So with that in mind, can I have a mover of the recommendation on page number 50? Councillor Graham and Councillor Cotton, all in favour? Against? Carried. Right, the time is 11:29, so we're going to take a break. Strictly 10 minutes, so we will be kicking off at 11:40. Welcome, Linda.
Thank you.
Please shut the door, please, George.
We're just waiting for.
No, we're carrying on with the meeting. Can you please shut the door? You need to pull his socks up.
Just presenting this report on behalf of Greta, who is attending a wedding. And a couple of key points, I guess, is that you'll see the October 25 weather event has been a main cause of reduced compliance. So that didn't necessarily mean that the water wasn't compliant. It was more about we couldn't evidence that. So with the comms not working, that some of the recording of data was not possible. So that's been a feature across the tables. You'll see quite a bit of red appearing in October. And also summer demand. So we've bypassed treatment on the North Bruce scheme and also on the Richardson South scheme to meet demands of stock over this period as well. Another item of note is that during this period, so in November, Balmoral 1, Tuapeka East and Tuapeka West schemes were connected to the Balmoral Tuapeka Rural Water Scheme. So that will obviously mean compliance for those schemes will improve overall, which is very exciting and good to see that that's evidenced by consumer feedback. Another item of interest, I guess, is the Evans Flats on page 85. You'll see that for December there is no recording there, so that plant has now been turned off and never to be resuscitated again. That scheme has been deregistered as a supply through to Marawai. So that's a sign of good progress on that project, and obviously another couple that we're still waiting to flick the switch on. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Linda. Any questions of Linda? Councillor Graham?
Yeah, it's probably written here somewhere and I've missed it, but what the facts are fact.
Oh, FAC, free available chlorine, so it's a level, yeah.
Thank you. It's had me puzzled for a while.
Councillor McCrosty?
I'd just like to thank you and your team for getting those schemes up and running after that wind event. I know the guys around home, camps were, that got us out of trouble by bypassing. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Thank you.
Just one quick one from me. Just a question, Linda, through you, Mr. Chairman. How often do you do these reports? So obviously you'd be wanting to feed us some information that will be more current. So how often do you do that? Is it 6 monthly, 2 monthly, 1 monthly?
So these reports, this report in particular is prepared for the Risk and Assurance Committee meeting.
Each meeting.
Each meeting. That may be reviewed, given we also report some of those things in our council meeting as well. It's an opportunity perhaps to refine.
Of course. Thank you.
Mayor Martin, then Councillor Catherwood.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Linda, Councillor McAtamney and Councillor Cotton have already spoken about it in earlier presentations, but I've received lots of reports from locals on the new scheme over our side, and well done to you and the team for coming through with the goods. So yeah,
that's great. It's
lots of good water.
It's been a team effort, Your Worship.
Okay. Was the other one, was it Councillor Catherwood? Yeah.
Through you, Chair. So on Kaka Point, Linda, South Richardson Rural Water Scheme. So we've had pretty, I suppose, kind weather towards our stock, and we're still under supplying, so we're bypassing. We've had the boil water notice on Kaka Point, so realistically that boil water is going to be around for quite some period of time.
We've got treatment back on at the plant, but we're struggling with the FAC level at Kaka Point, so we can't lift the boil water notice. So we're conscious, obviously, with that rural demand, what it means for Kaka Point. And we have just discussed that this morning, looking potentially to do some flushing over at Kaka Point to try and get that treatment good water through to help lift the boil water notice earlier. So we've got full treatment back in place, and we are looking now to try and get that FAC level compliant.
So the report of the stock demand to bypass, we move into a hot period, are we going to be moving back to that bypass again? Or?
I can never say never, because the weather and the water conditions obviously make a difference to how we treat things. We do have now that big reservoir has come online as well. So we've got additional storage, which gives us an opportunity to tweak the plant if we needed.
Just going to say we've also got a leak we're trying to figure out at KP, so once that reservoir fills up, we might actually have some chlorine levels recover as well.
Yeah.
So operational issues have reigned at KP reservoir at the moment. Hopefully,
thanks.
Fills back up.
Thank you. Other questions, comments, observations? Councillor Harrison, you're happy to move? Councillor Catherwood to second. All in favour? Carried. Item 10, the 3 monthly report, Linda, which is now go to page 88, and on the table it says, top line it says 3 month budget, should in fact read 6 month budget. And equally, this is a 6 monthly report, not a 3 monthly report. Linda.
So I was just going to, thank you, Mr. Chair, I was just going to draw your attention to page 87 actually, which does talk about this report being pulled together manually. So there might be some ups and downs in some of the categories, I think, is the general headline, but the bottom number is probably still accurate. And you will see that we have an overspend, so our expenditure is now at about $1 million, so 9.1% over budget. That was 7.4% after the first quarter, so we've stopped, I guess, some of that over expenditure happening, but until we see the actual numbers, analysis is a bit more difficult, but there's my numbers in that $1 million that I've had a look at the details. So we've got still some salaries overrun, which has been a feature. Some of that will have been contributed to by the excessive amounts of work that were done over the wind event when I had people working almost 24/7 for a week or two. Some of that will be claimable under our business interruption insurance. We've got an insurance over budget of $73,000 for insurance charges, which are presumably our premiums. Our interest on our loans is over by $137,000. And then once again, it's our O&M and our non-routine expenditure, which is the stuff that I guess we control every day, is over by about $670,000. Some of those costs may be able to be moved to minor purchases because we look like we're well under budget there. We've got about $357,000 of planned budget that we could potentially look for items that have been miscoded and moved.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to add one thing to that, since Linda and I met about this, I've done a bit more looking at comparing things too, and discovered that of that 1.4 million, 250,000 of it belongs below the line. That's what we've found so far. It's just been mapped incorrectly to where it's headed, so it shouldn't be. It'll be $1 million over less 250. That's what we've found so far. And we're anticipating potentially more as we move through.
So 750 over budget so far.
Yes.
First 6 months of the year.
Yes. But bearing in mind, there will be costs in there that can be claimed from insurance that we never would have budgeted for the wind event. But wages is just about one. There's other things in there too.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Sharon, you made a comment there about 250 of it should be under the line because it was journaled.
To you, Chair, no, it's in the Datascape system, the way it's set up. It was chosen an operational thing here and a capital thing here. So it's gone to operational, it should have been capital. It's just a matter of aligning the stars a little better. But part of it's the system, part of it's staff education as well. If you choose this, choose that. So,
Right, so it was allocated in the wrong department.
yes, correct.
Does that happen very often?
A little bit.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chairman, would it be fair to say, Sharon, it's been a lot more prevalent with that new system while people are figuring out how it's supposed to be used?
Correct.
So there's going to be some tidy ups with the 6 months, but I'm sure.
Certainly.
What I'm getting at was the accuracy of the reporting, that's all, through human error, so,
I'm confident the costs are all water, I'm just not confident that the right ones are above and below the line at this point. But that's a body of work is to go through line by line and check them. Talk about that.
And through the chair, we used to do that monthly with the old system because people would pick a code thinking that I should code this to that particular code and it was in the wrong place. So we would cleanse that monthly. So there wasn't a big cleanup at the end of the year, but we haven't had that reporting available to us. So that's why I think there will be some things that are sitting in the wrong place.
But Sharon, when you were saying about below the line, are you talking about miscoding in a posting line, or are you talking about operations versus capital?
Operations versus capital.
Okay, so
yes, and that affects the funding of it is the point.
So what you mean by that is that within the operational budgets and the operational overspend that you see here, some of that could be capital that therefore wouldn't be an operational spend, that would be part of the capital spend.
Correct.
So that, again, that's needs to be, obviously that's something we need to be doing. We had better visibility, that would be done earlier. It's one of those things we need to squeeze into before year end and as soon as we can. Can't be quantified, so no point trying to work out what that makes in terms of the difference, but it explains an aspect of it. I mean, in a big picture sense, when we were talking about this, and I talked to some of the portfolio holders and yourself, Mr. Chair, and we're saying, well, what's the big picture issue? We are nearly where we need to be in terms of budget for salaries. There is the spending more as a result of the wind event, but we aren't far away in having budget equal what the remuneration is, which means that the budget is where it needs to be for it, as opposed to trying to catch up with what was the structure going to be and all that sort of thing. So that's a positive thing in terms of where we are. The other thing, which is the known problem we've always got, is what was the budget for the non-routine expenditure, which is an operations expenditure. That budget has never been sufficient, and we put that into next year's annual plan, and it's one of the things we might need to be pulling back from again, because the moment you try to put all that funding in to equate to what's actually being spent, it makes a big significant difference as a consequence. So our budgets in that non-routine have not been equal to what actuals have been. That's been a budgeting decision around things, but it's also the uncontrollable spend. You cannot control the non-routine spend because that's something breaks and needs to be fixed issue. To Linda and the team's credit, they have put into the annual plan what they think we need to be doing realistically, and that's one of the big reasons why the Three Waters budget is again, there's variance for the annual plan, causing us a problem. We will need to determine what we do with that, given there's only 1 year of operation before the CCO, and we'll need to talk about that. But that is a known issue which is creating an overspend, and has created an overspend over the last 2 or 3 years. So that's the big reason for operational overspend.
Thank you for that. Any other comments, Councillor Frost?
Through Mr. Chair. Linda, I was just running Te Mata Arawai. I see we're paying 61,000 so far this year. Can you tell us how much you think their fees are going to cost us for a year, please?
So it'll be double that, so that is 6 months, so sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. So that's based on, they had a couple of options. They came out and consulted with all councils or water suppliers. We selected the option based on population, which gave us the lowest possible amount we had to pay, and that's where it settled. So all the other little councils would have done the same, I imagine.
So there's no other cost from them?
Just the 120 or whatever it is a year.
There's a recommendation on page 87. Do I have a mover? Councillor Kennedy, seconded Councillor Cotton. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you, Linda. Yay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is just a report as to an update on the mandatory docs register. If you recall, we previously presented this during your induction. It's just a bit of an overview as to compliance, all of the different requirements and legislative requirements and regulatory requirements we're complying with. There'll be another update coming out shortly. Taituara, every single year, Taituara, the representative organisation for council staff across New Zealand, publishes this in conjunction with their lawyers. They provide an update every year on all of the legislative changes and feed it through this table. We haven't received that this year yet, so we'll probably anticipate a more substantive update to be in March or April. And there is probably going to be quite a lot of updates this year, just with all of the legislation that were passed last year and all of the risks that they would have identified. Just going through this report, in general, council is tracking, we are ensuring that we are complying, and ideally by the deadline, and where there were issues, we've corrected them as well as much as possible. You'll see some of the updates on the paper on page 91. Just a couple of kind of things that either we're working on or some of the aspects that we're still currently waiting for information on. Yeah, so that's pretty much all I have. Any question? Happy to take any questions through the chair.
Thank you. Questions of Yi? I've got not so much a question of Yi, but of everybody else. Has anyone actually started to read that? It's a serious question. This is the mandatory documents register. So when we talk about core services and when we talk about the role and responsibility of local government, that's your starting point. So next day it rains, which could be a couple of months away, but next day it does and you can't go outside and do anything. Keep it handy and just have a flick through, because the conversation that we're going to have over the next few months centres around that. Just the things that I said before, there is an expectation of council, particularly in rural and provincial areas, to provide services that central government don't. And a lot of those services are identified in that booklet. Questions of Yi? If not, do we have a mover for the recommendation on page 90? Mayor Martin, Councillor Frost, all in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you, Yi. On page 92, Sharon's just jumped out to do a wee job for me. A report that basically tells us what we know, that there are no financial reports, but we're going to discuss this a wee bit more in depth during the discussion on the yellow papers. So I will move recommendation, seconded Councillor Cotton, all in favour? Carried. Item 13, Greg, welcome.
And can I just check, Greg, before we start, when you wrote this, you were financial manager. Is that, that's changed?
That's right, that would have been with the agenda.
So part of the structural changes we made is Greg was successful in attaining the position of Chief Financial Officer. So we've split that off, Sharon's group manager side of things. Greg is now picking up that area, which is part of the necessary changes and resourcing that we needed. So well done, Greg. Congratulations.
Thanks, Steve.
And I think when Trey comes up, we'll say something again for Trey, but let's move on.
All right, thanks, Steve. Morning, everybody. So the borrowings report. So just I'll go through a couple of quick points about that. So current borrowings is 158.3 million. That's still under the budgeted year-end LTP balance of 197.471 million. Just one thing to note is that our last borrowings were actually in October. We haven't borrowed since then, but we're going to be, we're currently just in the process of reviewing our cash flow position again to see when we next need to borrow again. So I'll be able to provide more detail on that next time. We have the year-to-date interest paid on the LGFA debt is 3.051 million, as you'll see in the table there. And I'll just include the graph in the table below that, just showing the trends in the cost of funds. So again, we're seeing a decreasing trend in the cost of funds going, down to 3.99% currently. So happy to take any questions or discussion.
A couple of comments. Firstly, congratulations on the appointment, Greg. Thoroughly deserved. On that figure of 3051, can you recall approximately what the budget was for the same period? I assume less than that. More than that, shall I say?
Off the top of my head, I'd have to
if you just
check.
give us the
I
answer.
can include it in the next time, what the budget figure was to date and the comparison. So,
Okay. Other questions or comments? Mover, Councillor Smith. Seconded, Councillor Harrison. All in favour? Carried. Item 14, Greg, Treasury Investment Report.
thank you, Mr. Chair. So just reporting back on our mobile fund, which is one that was previously known as NICO. So yes, for the December period, we had a 32k unrealised loss, but we had quarterly distributions reinvested of 173k. So that meant a net increase of 141k to the fund. So the year-to-date cumulative return on the investment is 8.78%. That's including gains and losses from the prior months. And so in terms of the overall unrealised gain year-to-date, it's 1.9 million. And so for the majority of the year, it's actually had a positive return. 6 out of the 9 months in the financial year have produced gains. So overall positive return. The benchmark table there, you'll see the total gross return of 0.93% is a bit less than what the benchmark was of 1.31. But again, that's just looking at the last 3 months. So that, because we had losses for the last 2 months, it's down for that particular period, but over the whole year, it's still in a positive way. Yes, and as you can see by the year-to-date return on investment, that shows that the actual is well above what the budget was. So, again, happy to take any questions or discussion.
Just, Greg, has the January figure come through yet?
Not yet, no. We'll probably get that. It usually comes in around about, so we'll probably get that any time. So, but don't have it yet, unfortunately.
And just for councillors, remembering again through you, Mr. Chairman, the financial year for our investments is to that
April to March.
Yes, so 31st of March. So we've got January finished. We're in February. There's only 2 more months for us to close off the the investment returns. So we never know exactly, because you can always have a horrid month at any point, but you can also have a good one. But it's from that end period that we then bring into the budget your decision making around what you do with that particular surplus, if there is.
Yeah, Martin.
Thank you, Chair. Greg, page 113.
Oh yes, the Bancorp report.
Oh, one step ahead.
So this one? Liquidity report.
It's still into this. This one, yeah. So
Sorry, I meant to mention attach the quarterly Bancorp MJW reports at the end of it. So yes, it's there.
I see policy compliance, that's all up to date, but just a question, so you've got a statement there, liquidity ratio must be 110%, we're sitting at 122.
Yeah, it must be greater than 110%.
It's got to be greater than 100. Right, that's how it's meant to read. Greater.
Greater than, yes, so because it's 1.22, 1.3, it's on the good
So
side.
we're hanging in there by our fingernails.
Yes.
Other questions? Mayor Martin is moving. Who's seconding? Councillor Kennedy, all in favour? Against, carried. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Now go to page 118, recommendation to go into committee.
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Chairman, I failed to realise that Trey was not going to speak to anything. So Trey is the second part of the restructure we had. So Trey has been successful and been appointed to the position of team leader finance, which was Greg's old position. So again, well deserved in terms of what Trey gives us and that. So again, just letting you know, it's really valuable staff, getting deserved promotions. That by structure will help us in terms of the problems we've had with finance resource.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Trey, congratulations, thoroughly deserved.
Good stuff, big boy.
Right, series of recommendations on page 118 that I will move. Councillor Frost will second. All in favour?
Aye.
And with that, we will take a 3-minute break.